Hi everyone, I'm Martha. It all started one busy afternoon at Starbucks. I was deep into my fourth coffee, completely absorbed in some design work for a major client, when he walked in. Logan Albert. Tall, charming, with an easy smile and an aura that felt both commanding and warm. Later, I'd learned he was the heir to Albert Industries. Mind if I share your table? Every other spot's taken, he asked, looking right at me. I glanced up, ready to politely say no, but something in his genuinely friendly expression made me nod. 2 hours later, we were still talking, bouncing from design trends to investment strategies like we'd known each other for years. I never knew someone could get so animated about font choices, he chuckled. Hey, typography is an art, I defended, laughing. Besides, Mr. Investment Banker, you just spent 20 minutes explaining hedge funds. That's how it began. Coffee dates quickly turned into dinners, and soon we were inseparable. 6 months later, he proposed at that same Starbucks table. It felt surreal, like I was in the middle of my own fairy tale. But fairy tales come with villains too. At our engagement party, his mother, Diana, with her perfectly practiced smile, pulled me aside. You're making a terrible mistake, dear, she said, her voice sweet but cold. We have expectations for an Albert bride. I brushed it off as protective mother syndrome. But then I noticed Richard, Logan's father, scrutinizing my off-the-rack dress, and Amber, his sister, making snide remarks about my humble beginnings. They're just old-fashioned, Logan assured me, squeezing my hand. They'll come around. My best friend Sarah wasn't as optimistic. Martha, these people make the real housewives look down to earth. Are you sure about this? But I was head over heels in love. We had a wedding, small by Albert standards, with only 200 guests. Diana managed to criticize everything from my dress to the flowers with a sugary, passive-aggressive tone. Such a creative choice, dear, she'd say, her eyes lingering judgmentally. But then again, it's what one might expect from someone with your background. Red flags popped up like weeds, but I was so enamored with Logan that I ignored them all. Soon after the wedding, though, I couldn't ignore the secretive phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, or the whispered conversations at family dinners, and Amber's sudden eagerness to bond. She dragged me to sister lunches only to snap photos and document my every word on social media with an exaggerated "just bonding with my new sister" caption. The whole family seemed to be conspiring, but Logan insisted I was imagining it. Then came the night that changed everything. I've been feeling nauseous all week, and the test confirmed it. I was pregnant. Bursting with excitement, I ran to tell Logan but froze when I heard voices from his study. Mom, this is ridiculous. Logan's voice sounded tense. Martha isn't after our money. Darling, we're just protecting you, Diana replied smoothly. The prenup lawyer is coming tomorrow. We'll see her true colors soon enough. I clutched my still flat stomach, my heart shattering as the realization set in. My fairy tale had morphed into a war zone, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. If the Alberts wanted to play games, I'd show them I could play to win. Looking back, I wish I'd seen it coming. But sometimes you have to go through hell to find your strength. It all truly came to a head at the Albert Charity Gala. Diana was huddled with her country club friends, whispering and casting poorly disguised sneers my way. She grew up in a rental in Brooklyn, one of them muttered, her eyes flitting to me. And her father was a mechanic, I hear. Beside me, Amber had her phone out, recording. So Martha, she started with a sly smile. Logan's really spoiling you, huh? Those designers must have cost a fortune. Actually, I bought these myself, I said firmly, keeping my voice steady. My design business is doing well. Later, at a family dinner, I heard a heavily edited version of that conversation played back, making me sound like a gold digger. The pressure was relentless. Between morning sickness and the constant tension, I was losing weight, barely holding it together. And then the worst happened. One night, I felt a sharp pain and knew something was terribly wrong. At the hospital, the doctor's words cut through me like ice. I'm sorry, but you've lost the baby. I was devastated, but Diana's reaction, even worse. How convenient, she sneered with Logan silent at her side. Get pregnant, lose the baby, classic manipulation. I barely recognized the woman in the mirror as I stared back at my reflection, broken and grieving. Logan had grown distant, spending late nights locked in his study. One night, I found him staring at a pile of legal papers. What's that? I asked, dreading the answer. Just some documents from Dad's lawyer, he replied, sliding them out of view. But not before I caught a glimpse. Postnuptial agreement. The final betrayal came at another family dinner. Excusing myself, I paused outside Richard's study when I heard him speaking to Logan. Either you get her to sign or you're out, he said in a cold, cutting tone. No more trust fund, no position in the company. Do you understand what you're risking for this, gold digger? Dad, she's my wife. Logan argued weakly. She's not. She's destroying everything we've built. Richard shot back. Do you know she's been looking into our business records? I had been trying to understand why our joint accounts showed mysterious transfers, but they twisted even that. Just handle it, son, before she ruins us. When I got home that night, Logan was waiting, papers in hand. They're just protecting our interests, Martha, he said. Our interests? I shot back. Or their control. He sighed, frustrated. You don't understand how things work in our world. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said, anger building. I understand your family has been planning this since day one. Amber has been editing our conversations. Your mother's been spreading lies. They're trying to protect you, you say. From what, Logan? The woman who loves you. Or from having to think for yourself. He looked stunned as I turned and walked away, my mind racing. They wanted to play dirty. Fine, but they've forgotten something crucial. I hadn't survived on my own all these years by being naive. It was time to show the Alberts exactly who they were dealing with, and I had just the plan to bring their perfect little facade crumbling down. Sarah's engagement party was the perfect hunting ground. I watched Amber knock back her fourth martini, her guard slipping with every sip. She cornered Sarah near the restroom, not noticing my phone, propped up behind a vase, recording every word. You should have seen her face when she lost the baby, Amber sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. Such a failed scheme. We've been working for months to get her out. Diana's brilliance, spreading those rumors, making her look unstable. And the recordings? Please, child's play. A few clever edits, and suddenly Miss Perfect sounds like a gold-digging witch. Logan is finally seeing her true colors. My hands shook as I retrieved my phone, but I knew this was just the beginning. Late one night at my design studio, while updating the Albert Industries website, I noticed something odd. Diana's digital signature on wire transfers to offshore accounts disguised under employee names. I tracked down Marcus, the former CFO, and his face went pale when I showed him the transfers. She fired us all, he muttered, gripping his coffee cup tightly. Claimed we were stealing. I tried to fight it, kept copies of everything. I need those copies, Marcus. Working with Richard's biggest competitor, Robert Chen, was almost too easy. He'd been waiting years for dirt on the Alberts. They destroyed my first company through insider trading, he admitted, sliding a USB drive across the table. Everything's here, dates, accounts, recorded threats. But they're untouchable. Unless, I prompted. Unless someone knows exactly where to look, he replied. Over the next few nights, I meticulously built my case, pretending to consider the postnuptial agreement while gathering evidence. Diana's embezzlement, Richard's insider trading, Amber's doctored recordings alongside the originals. Then, one evening, Logan found my laptop open. What is this? He asked, staring at the files. It's the truth about your family. These are lies. My mother would never, my father. Listen to this, I said, hitting play on Amber's confession. She was drunk, he protested. You're twisting things. Like they twisted everything about me? I snapped. The baby, Logan. They made you believe I planned that. Stop it. Just sign the papers, please, before they take everything from me. They already have, Logan. They took your spine, your judgment, and your wife's trust. But I'm done being their victim. The final piece came from Marcus, internal emails proving that Diana had systematically framed and fired employees to cover her embezzlement. The pieces were all there, a perfect trap ready to spring. I'll sign your papers, I told Logan that night. On one condition, a family dinner, one last time. He agreed, visibly relieved. Poor Logan, always choosing the easy path. But tomorrow's dinner would change everything. I'd invited a few special guests, Marcus, Robert Chen, and most importantly, the FBI's white-collar crime division. Let Diana serve her overpriced wine. Let Richard make his condescending toasts. Let Amber record every moment, because this time, I was orchestrating the show. And their grand finale was going to be spectacular. The Albert dining room had never felt so tense. Diana raised her glass, the practiced smile on her face, to family and new beginnings. Perfect timing, Diana, I interjected, setting down my glass. Let's talk about beginnings and endings. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Amber jumped, looking around nervously. We weren't expecting anyone else. Actually, I took the liberty of inviting a few guests, I said. Marcus walked in first, followed by Robert Chen, and then 2 FBI agents. Diana's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine staining her pristine tablecloth. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her mask cracking. Show them, Marcus. He opened his laptop, projecting documents onto the dining room wall. Wire transfers, forged signatures, fraudulent terminations, all linking back to Diana's private accounts. You framed innocent people, destroyed their lives to cover your embezzlement. These documents are stolen. Diana screeched. This is slander. One FBI agent stepped forward calmly. Actually, ma'am, these documents were legally obtained through a federal investigation. Richard's face turned purple. I'll have your badge for this. Sit down, Richard, Robert Chen said with a smirk. The SEC is very interested in those insider trading deals you used to crush my company. The evidence is quite compelling. Amber lunged for her phone, desperate to salvage any part of their plan. But Sarah was quicker, holding up the phone Amber thought she'd hidden. Looking for this. Sarah pressed play, and Amber's original, unedited recordings filled the room. Funny how different things sound without your creative editing, Sarah remarked. You planned this, Logan whispered, his face stricken. No, Logan. Your family planned their own destruction, I replied calmly. I just made sure they faced the consequences. The next hours were utter chaos. FBI agents searched the house as reporters gathered outside, cameras flashing. Diana was led away in handcuffs, screaming about family loyalty. 1 month later, Albert Industries faced a hostile takeover by Chen Enterprises. Marcus's whistleblower lawsuit exposed years of tax evasion, and the evidence was insurmountable. Logan showed up at my new office, looking haunted. They're saying we'll lose everything. The company, the houses, even Mom's precious social standing. I should have listened to you. Yes, I said, sliding the divorce papers across the desk. You should have. 1 year later, my design firm is thriving. I even bought the building of that Starbucks where Logan and I first met. My latest campaign just won a national award, and Sarah now heads our digital division. Last week, I ran into Amber. She was working as a barista. Diana and Richard are awaiting trial, their assets frozen. Logan, he's living in a cramped studio, learning what real work means. Yesterday, Diana's lawyer called, saying they wanted to make amends now that their society friends have turned their backs. Please tell Diana that, like her offshore accounts, I've transferred all my concern for the Alberts elsewhere. I replied before hanging up. Now I'm back at my desk, designing plans for my new beach house. The view is spectacular, though not quite as satisfying as watching karma catch up to those who thought they were untouchable. Some people think revenge is best served cold. I think it's best served with perfect timing, irrefutable evidence, and just a touch of poetic justice. The Alberts thought they could break me, but instead I broke their empire, all by using their own arrogance against them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a sunset to watch from my infinity pool. Amazing what you can afford when you're not paying for someone else's karma. What would you do if you discovered your in-laws weren't just toxic, but criminals using wealth and status to ruin lives? Would you have exposed them immediately, risking everything, or gathered evidence methodically, like Martha, to ensure justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below.